Hey everyone, Beardo here. You're watching MINUTIA Minute, and as you can see in today's video, I'm a little less encased in comics as I was in my last video, and that's because I relished being a comic book collector on today's comic book haul from this Wednesday. It would have been the 17th. A lot of great books. I got 5 books to review for you, and each and every one of them I would recommend. So let's kick it off right away. As usual, I've ordered these from least favorite to most favorite, but again, all of these are pretty darn good books, and I would recommend them to you all. So first up, we have got issue 13 of Batwoman. Now, a lot of you guys are reading this, and we all kind of know the same thing. Fantastic art, beautiful paneling by J.H. Williams III. Story-wise, we're lingering. As a matter of fact, we are on the same story that we were in before this series even started. Obviously, you know, it really set itself up very much at the beginning in issue 1, and it just hasn't progressed anywhere. It feels like we're just kind of going through more and more hoops. This issue, while a very good issue, definitely wouldn't have been contender for Pick of the Week this week, specifically because the story is a little lacking here. As far as the story goes, I mean, the good side is that J.H. Williams III and W. Hayden Blackman do a good job of servicing both Batwoman and Wonder Woman in this particular issue. They're both really, really strong female characters, but they have very specifically different voices. Wonder Woman's a lot more confident. You know, as Wonder Woman, you know, that's just who she is. Whereas with Batwoman, you know, her Batwoman persona is very confident, but her Kate Kane persona is a lot more complicated, a lot more turmoiled. And so they do a good job sort of differentiating those two personalities, and they do also a good job of giving each of these characters something to do. It isn't just Batwoman rescuing Wonder Woman because it's Batwoman's book, and at the same time, it's not just Wonder Woman rescuing Batwoman because, you know, Wonder Woman's obviously a more powerful being than Batwoman could ever be. Instead, you get a good balance between the two, and it really, really, I think, hits a nice note, and I'm really enjoying the fact that they did team up these two very strong DC female characters. If you're a girl out there and you want to get into comics, I think Batwoman is a great way to do it. Now, I say girl, I mean woman, because, you know, this is a pretty adult title, but nevertheless, if you want to see women, in my opinion, well represented, look no further than Batwoman. It's a great book for that reason. Now, as far as the overall story arc is concerned, this is where it falls short. We're still, you know, they're on the hunt for Medusa. They set that up at the end of issue 12, way back 2 months ago. And at the end of this, they're still on the hunt. It's basically just kind of a long, wild goose chase after one individual, and then at the end they're like, okay, well that didn't work out, let's go after the next individual. And so, in a way, this issue is kind of a nutshell of the problem I've been having with this book since it started, which is that, you know, now they gotta find Medusa, to find the kids, to find the person who's kidnapping the kids, and Falcon, and the children of Medusa, and everything. You know, it's just like every time, it feels like we're getting further and further away from actually resolving that first storyline, and I really want to see something new and fresh come out of Batwoman in the near future. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get that, although, at least as I said, since we do have Wonder Woman in this, it does feel a little bit fresh from that perspective. Now, as far as art goes, obviously, I mean, J.H. Williams III is second to none in terms of his paneling and the way he balances sort of regular comic book artwork with painted artwork and, you know, all that stuff. You guys know the drill. However, I would say this is a weaker issue for him, and not because there's anything lacking in the ornateness of his artwork. It really comes from the fact that this book is very, very prose heavy, and to a degree, and I felt this way about issue 0 too, but I didn't get to review that one. But to a degree, it's like you have art on one side and you've got prose on the other side, and they don't necessarily intermingle. It's more, the prose is almost explaining what's going on with the art. And with art as ornate as J.H. Williams III is capable of, since this is a comic book, those two things should be able to intermingle more so than they do. Now, there are points in here where it really intermingles well. There's a double-page splash where you see Batwoman, and then you have all these centipedes around, and then there's dialogue written into the centipedes, and, you know, that page flows very, very nicely. But then you have other points where, I mean, it's really just prose explaining what's going on, and then looking at pretty pictures on the other side, and they don't quite intermingle, at least to the degree I'd like. So a little bit style over substance with Batwoman number 13. Nevertheless, though, this book is always interesting, and if you like strong female characters, this is the book for you. Alright, next up, another book that's usually very close to the top, but a little bit lower just because there was some stuff that trumped it this week, and that was Daredevil number 19. Now, Mark Waid has done a phenomenal job of digging into how Daredevil's senses work and playing with the reader in terms of, you know, what's real, what's not. Is Daredevil, you know, can Daredevil sense this, but how does that really work? And he does a great job of sort of integrating Daredevil's senses and really making you feel like you can see in Daredevil's the way Daredevil does. A really great example of that would be back in the Latveria issue where he's having his big escape and he's losing his powers, and you know, even though that's this really sort of over-the-top absurd moment in terms of like just realism, it feels real because you really can relate to what's going on as he's losing his powers and then also his senses. In this issue, it's much more of a psyche issue, but at the same time he's questioning his senses and, you know, is this real, is this not real? The thing that trips this book up a little bit is it's almost a little too psychedelic. It's a little too like all over the place for it to really have a natural progression. It's scary, and there's an element of like, oh man, what is wrong with Daredevil here? But at the same time, I don't relate to Daredevil the same way I did with, for example, the Latveria issue where he's making his big escape. So, not a misstep, just sort of a natural difference between those two stories that made it, for me, a little weaker, but at the same time, it's still very good writing. As far as illustration goes, Chris Samney, I mean, come on. He is phenomenal. He does a great job. He fits this work perfectly. We get an introduction of an old villain made new, and this was another shortcoming for me, is because I don't really know who this dude is. I don't know if I'm supposed to recognize this guy. It's all Greek to me, so I was a little bit along for the ride, and I felt a little confused as a part of that, but I will say I do really love this design. If this is a new design by Chris Samney, props to him, because this is just a great Matt Wagner style kind of a deal. Another big trope of what Mark Waid has brought us is, you know, putting Daredevil in these unusual worlds, in the sense of, you know, you had him going to hell in an issue, and in this issue you have him in sort of possibly a purgatory or something, and I'm really excited to see where that's going to go, but we won't know till issue 20. Until then, relish issue 19 because it's good stuff. Alright, a little bit better than Daredevil this week is an issue that I'm going to dedicate my review. I never have done this before, but I'm going to do it today. I dedicate today's review of ExSanguine to Poet Skinny. Poet Skinny, you do lots of different stuff on your YouTube channel. You're not just a comic book reviewer. You play to a lot of different audiences, and I enjoy catching up on all your videos, and I have been enjoying your positive thought of the day. Sometimes they feel a little preachy or a little, I don't want to say obvious, but at the same time, it's still good to hear, and it still kind of helps your frame of mind, and I think that's all you're really particularly going for, so you did a great job with it. And this issue, and my review of this issue, is a direct result of his last positive thought of the day, in which he said, go do something different. Well, it's hard to say that on a Wednesday to people who read comics, because I don't know about you guys, but I have a very regimented schedule on Wednesday as far as how I go about my day. And so the best way I could find to do that is, let's find something I've never read and just grab it. And I saw this issue of ExSanguine. It's written by Tim Seeley and Joshua Scott Emmons. Tim Seeley, of course, being really popular right now for his work on Revival. It's also illustrated by Tim Seeley, and I thought, you know, let's give this a shot. I haven't been reviewing Revival because I haven't gotten it sort of on the week, but I have been picking up issues here and there. And I really like its sort of kind of Invasion of the Body Snatchers Pod People element, but it's also kind of a zombie tale, but on its head. And I like that he's kind of trying to reinvent the genre, and I feel like he's doing something similar with ExSanguine, only with vampires. You have this sort of traditional old-fashioned looking guy with his sort of mutton chops who is our vampire. I can't think of his name. And it reminds me a lot of Andrew Bennett, actually, in terms of I, Vampire, and how, you know, he's sort of trying to fit into this world that he doesn't really belong, but he still wants to kind of conform to that, but he still has the thirst, and he also has this relationship with someone who there's some sexual tension there, and she is a lot more evil than he is. Now, I don't want to spoil this book because I want you to go check this book out, but I will say the thing that makes this book sort of a vampire story on its head is, who would have thought that a vampire story, or that in a vampire story, the monster of the title is not the vampire, and it's someone who isn't a vampire at all. That made a very, very interesting twist at the end of this book and really made me want to keep reading. Now, I don't normally, it's kind of like with Batman. I try not to buy too many Batman titles because, all those books have a similarity to them. And it's the same thing with vampire books, because comic books tell vampire stories very, very well. American Vampire, I, Vampire, and now ExSanguine. But I try not to buy too many of those titles, just because I want to save money for other stuff. So I'm not sure that I'm going to pick up ExSanguine, but I do really recommend that you continue to pick it up if you check out the first issue. And you never know, I may pick up at least issue 2 because I do want to see where this is headed. Really good stuff. Alright, penultimate issue, but not pick of the week, goes to, drumroll, Wonder Woman, issue number 13. Wonder Woman has to win cover of the week. I mean, it's like Wonder Woman of Arabia. Friggin' awesome stuff. I love it. The reason this book doesn't quite get pick of the week is because this is kind of a transitionary issue. Now, if you remember 2 months ago in my last Wonder Woman review for issue 12, I was absolutely stoked with where the book was headed. We had the appearance of the New Gods. We had a really satisfying wrap-up of the story with a great cliffhanger, not just from the New Gods' perspective, but from sort of Wonder Woman's perspective. And it really left you hanging. 2 months later, we get back, and the New Gods are still present. There is a little bit of development with that, but that's still kind of the B story. And basically, this is the issue where Wonder Woman's regrouping. She's trying to get her team together, and she's trying to figure out how they're going to be able to get this baby back that they lost at the end of issue number 12. Really, really enjoyed this story. Really great progression. If you saw the cover to issue 15, you know the New Gods are coming right around the corner in all of their glory. So I'm just really excited for that. And it's a lot of that hype, honestly, that probably made this book of the week. I've probably should have put ExSanguine actually a little bit above Wonder Woman, but I just love this book. It's absolutely phenomenal. Can't recommend it enough. The other reason this book doesn't quite get pick of the week, though, was actually Tony Aiken's art. The primary artist is Cliff Chang, who you see on the cover, and then Tony Aikens is kind of the B artist, but they kind of share duties pretty equally. I've really enjoyed his artwork. Some people have been kind of mixed about it, but this issue was a little bit lackluster. I think it was partly because there weren't a lot of, like, graphic moments of the story. I don't mean graphic as in bloody, but graphic as in visual, because, again, it is a transitionary issue. So it was just it felt a little humdrum to me, I guess, and I can't quite explain it more than that. But hopefully next issue, I'm assuming Tony Aikens will be on issue 14 as well, and I'm really hoping that he kind of picks it up a little bit here. But overall, really, really good read. Excited to see where this is going. Good cliffhanger at the end that makes me really curious to see if it's even going to be possible for them to recover the baby that they lost at the end of 12. So go check it out. Wonder Woman, one of the best books, consistently month to month from DC. All right. Now, Marvel has 2 books that are very consistently incredible month to month. No, hands down, hold no bars, whatever. First one is Daredevil, already reviewed that. The other book also came out this week, and it is none other than Hawkeye. Now, both Daredevil and Hawkeye are $2.99 books, and they only come out once a month. This is a recipe for success if you want to take time and really build up a quality story that is really artistically strong and has a consistent creative team. I wish Marvel would follow their own example with Daredevil and Hawkeye across some of their other books. I would probably pick up a lot more Marvel than I do. Hawkeye this week really, really took the cake. Nothing was better than Hawkeye. And it was the first book I read, and it just blew my socks off. It was phenomenal. Every one of these issues starts with a big hero moment, and then you kind of backtrack and you get how he got to that moment. And what that does, particularly in this issue, is you see your big superhero moment, and then he deconstructs it. In issue 1, he actually deconstructed the moment. There's this moment he kind of jumps out of a building and he points the arrow right, into where you're looking, and it looks exactly like the Avengers movie. And he's like, well, here's where Hawkeye's world really is. And he just takes that moment and builds something completely different around him that's very, just a normal guy who carries a bow and arrow and happens to be an Avenger. He continues that deconstruction here with another sort of one-off story. In this particular issue, it is sort of the 8 or 9 mistakes that he made that day. And you see sort of the penultimate mistake at the very beginning, and then you see all the mistakes that led up to that. And they're all very human mistakes. And it just sort of, again, this guy living an ordinary day-to-day life, he also happens to be this Avenger that gets caught up in these, bigger events and bigger moments. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful artwork in this. The artwork is what really kicks it over the edge. I know people have mixed reactions with Matt Fraction. I haven't really read much Matt Fraction other than this, and I think honestly one of the reasons why this book shines so much is because he has a great artist working on the book. What my understanding is Matt Fraction only writes the basic outline. It's the classic Marvel style where he writes a basic outline, the artist goes off, does their thing, he comes back and fills in all the blanks. And you really feel that because the feeling of motion in this book and sort of just the element of graphic storytelling that you get with Hawkeye month to month is absolutely spot on. And in all honesty, I think this is probably the best paneling in comics right now. And yes, I'm saying that over Batwoman because Batwoman is ornate and it's beautiful to look at. I mean, it's total eye candy. And it really does a great job with motion and all that stuff. But this one accomplishes all of that and a little bit more, and does so in a lot more traditional, a lot more simple, deconstructed of a way. And I find that really, really appealing. So the artwork by David, I'm not sure if you say, is it David Aja or David Aya? I'm going to say Aja. But his work in this book is absolutely what kicks this book over the top and makes it a must pick up for me every single month. If you haven't been picking this up, you could pick up with issue 4. I mean, every issue has been a standalone, so just sort of this great little action vignette. So you could really check this out anytime you want, and I do recommend you do so. My only question for this book, moving forward, is are we going to get some bigger storylines? With Daredevil, Mark Waid does a really great job of balancing his great single-issue vignette stories with bigger stories that are kind of going on issue to issue. And I'd like to see something similar to that with Hawkeye, but I want to give it a few issues because I'm relishing these vignettes so much. So anyway, really curious to see where this book is going to go moving forward, but all in all, fantastic read, definitely pick of the week. So today, great week. Did I mention that yet? Fantastic read with Hawkeye. Very, very good read, although a little bit transitional with Wonder Woman. Not quite your typical vampire story, but very, very good twist ending with ExSanguine, #1. Psychedelic, confusing, yet still totally relished the read of Daredevil this month with issue 19. And then very ornate, very beautiful artwork from J.H. Williams III and Batwoman, #13. So there you go. Those are the books we looked at this week. Hope you enjoyed. If you didn't check out my Catwoman review, it's episode 62, right before this one, so go check it out. Thank you, everyone, for watching. This is Beardo, signing off.